Vanessa's hand cracked across the old woman's face. Dorothy Washington collapsed against the garbage bin, blood trickling from her split lip. At 68 years old, her frail body crumpled like paper on the cold kitchen floor. "Open your mouth!" Vanessa grabbed a fistful of rotting food and shoved it toward Dorothy's face. Moldy bread, spoiled meat, coffee grounds crawling with maggots. "Eat it, you disgusting old dog!" Dorothy gagged. Tears carved paths through the filth on her hollow cheeks. Her trembling hands pressed together in prayer. "Please, I won't eat anymore. Please, I'm begging you, I can't." The front door crashed open. Marcus Caldwell stood frozen, watching his wife's fingers twist deeper into the silver hair of the woman who had raised him. Before we continue this incredible story, please subscribe to our channel and follow Dorothy's journey until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from so we can see how far this story travels. Now let's continue. Marcus Caldwell's briefcase slipped from his fingers. It crashed against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot, but Marcus didn't hear it. He couldn't hear anything except the blood roaring in his ears and the desperate whimpering coming from the woman on the floor. Dorothy. His Mama Dorothy. The woman who had changed his diapers when his own mother was too sick to get out of bed. The woman who had held him through the funeral when he was only 3 years old, too young to understand why Mama wasn't waking up. The woman who had worked double shifts at the textile factory and then come home to help him with his homework. The woman who had sold her own wedding ring so he could have a winter coat. That woman was on her knees next to the garbage bin. Her silver hair hung in matted clumps around her hollow face. Her house dress, the blue one with the little flowers that she always kept so neat and pressed, was stained and torn. Her hands, those beautiful hands that had braided his hair and wiped his tears and held him when the nightmares came, were shaking so badly she could barely grip the piece of moldy bread she was trying to force down her throat. And standing over her arms, crossed lips curled in disgust, was Vanessa, his wife. "What the hell is going on here?" Marcus's voice came out strangled, barely above a whisper. His legs felt like they might buckle beneath him. Vanessa's head snapped around. For one split second, Marcus saw something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. Something predatory, something cruel, something that looked like hatred. Then it vanished. "Oh my God, Marcus!" Vanessa's face transformed instantly. Her eyes went wide and wet. Her lower lip trembled. She rushed toward him with her arms outstretched, her designer heels clicking frantically against the floor. "Thank God you're home early. I've been so scared, baby, so scared. I didn't know what to do." She threw herself against his chest, burying her face in his shirt, her shoulders heaving with sobs. Marcus didn't move. His arms stayed rigid at his sides. His eyes never left Dorothy, who was still crumpled on the floor, still holding that disgusting piece of garbage, still crying without making a sound. "Get off me!" His voice was harder now, colder. Vanessa pulled back, blinking rapidly. "Marcus, baby. What's wrong?" "I said get off me." He pushed her away and strode past her toward Dorothy. "Why is she on the floor? Why is she eating garbage? What the hell have you done?" Vanessa's hand flew to her chest. "What have I done, Marcus? I haven't done anything. This is what I've been trying to tell you for months. Dorothy is sick. She's very, very sick." Marcus dropped to his knees beside the woman who had raised him. Up close, she looked even worse than he had thought. Her cheekbones jutted out sharply beneath her papery skin. Her collarbones were visible through the thin fabric of her dress. She had lost 30 pounds at least, maybe more. "Mama Dorothy." The words came out broken. He hadn't called her that since he was a little boy, since before he made his first million, since before he forgot what really mattered in life. "Mama Dorothy, look at me. Please look at me." Dorothy slowly raised her head. Her eyes, those warm brown eyes that had always looked at him with such fierce love and pride, were bloodshot and filled with terror. Real terror. The kind of terror that comes from months of abuse and degradation and hopelessness. "Baby." Her voice was a ragged whisper. "Baby, you came home." I'm here. Marcus took her hands in his. They were ice cold and trembling violently. I'm here, Mama Dorothy. Tell me what happened. Tell me everything. Dorothy's mouth opened. Her eyes darted over Marcus's shoulder to where Vanessa was standing, and immediately her whole body went rigid. She shook her head frantically, tears spilling down her sunken cheeks. I can't. You see what I mean? Vanessa's voice floated over from behind them, dripping with false sympathy. She's been like this for weeks, confused, paranoid. She hides food all over the house. She wanders around at night talking to people who aren't there. And sometimes she takes things from the garbage and eats them. I've tried everything, Marcus. I've tried so hard to help her, but she won't let me. Marcus turned to look at his wife. She was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, her face a perfect mask of concern and distress. Why didn't you tell me? He demanded. Why didn't you call me in Singapore? I did tell you. Vanessa's voice rose to a wail. I sent you emails every week. I told you Dorothy was having episodes, that she was declining, that I was worried about her. But you were so busy with your deal, and I didn't want to burden you with the details. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could take care of her until you got home. Marcus's mind was racing. He did remember the emails. Vanessa had mentioned that Dorothy was tired sometimes, that she was getting older, that she was having senior moments. But this was not a senior moment. This was a nightmare. Mama Dorothy. Marcus squeezed her hands gently. I need you to tell me the truth. Did Vanessa do something to you? Did she hurt you? Dorothy's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. She looked at Marcus, then at Vanessa, then back at Marcus again. Baby, Don't be ridiculous, Marcus. Vanessa had moved closer. Her voice was soft and soothing, like she was talking to a frightened child. Dorothy is confused. She doesn't know what's real anymore. Last week she accused Patricia of poisoning her food. The week before that she told the gardener that I was trying to kill her. Dr. Cole says it's a classic symptom of her condition. Dr. Cole? Marcus frowned. Who the hell is Dr. Cole? Vanessa sighed deeply, as if she were carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Dr. Regina Cole. She's a psychiatrist. I hired her to evaluate Dorothy after the episode started getting worse. I should have told you, I know, but you were under so much pressure with the Singapore deal, and I didn't want to add to your stress. I thought I could handle everything myself. You hired a psychiatrist without telling me. I was scared, Marcus. Vanessa's voice cracked. I was alone in this big house with a woman who was losing her mind, and I didn't know what to do. Dr. Cole has been wonderful. She comes by twice a week to check on Dorothy. She has a whole file of observations and assessments. She says Dorothy is showing clear signs of dementia, possibly with psychotic features. She needs professional care, Marcus. The kind of care I can't give her here. Marcus stared at his wife. Her tears looked real. Her distress looked genuine. Everything she was saying made a horrible kind of sense. But something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. He looked down at Dorothy, still huddled on the cold floor, still shivering, still silent. The terror in her eyes hadn't diminished. If anything, it had grown stronger the closer Vanessa came. Mama Dorothy. Marcus lowered his voice to barely a whisper. Just nod your head. Yes or no. Is Vanessa telling the truth? Dorothy's whole body trembled. A sob caught in her throat. Her eyes filled with fresh tears, and then so slightly that Marcus almost missed it. She shook her head. No. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. A fissure of doubt that had been forming ever since he walked through that door suddenly split wide open. Help me get her up, he said to Vanessa, his voice carefully neutral. She needs to rest. Together they lifted Dorothy from the floor. She weighed almost nothing. Marcus could feel every bone in her body through the thin fabric of her dress. Let's get you to your room, Mama Dorothy. You need sleep. He guided her toward the stairs, keeping his arm firmly around her waist to steady her trembling legs. Marcus. Dorothy's grip on his arm suddenly tightened. Her voice was low and urgent, meant only for his ears. Marcus, please. You have to listen to me. I'm not crazy. I'm not sick. Everything she told you is a lie. Shh. Marcus patted her hand, hyper-aware that Vanessa was watching them from the bottom of the stairs. We'll talk about everything tomorrow, Mama Dorothy. Right now, you need to rest. No. Dorothy's voice rose in desperation. No, we can't wait until tomorrow. She'll do something tonight. She always does something when she knows I've tried to talk to you. Please, baby. Please believe me. She's been starving me. She's been making me eat from the garbage. She's been locking me outside in the cold. She's been hitting me, Marcus. Your wife has been hitting me. Marcus's blood turned to ice in his veins. What did you say? She hits me. Dorothy was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. On my arms and my legs where the bruises won't show, she pulls my hair. She pushes me down the stairs. And when I cry, she takes pictures and shows them to that doctor woman, and they laugh together about how crazy I look. Marcus stopped walking. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his temples. Mama Dorothy, those are very serious accusations. I know. Dorothy looked up at him with those terrified, desperate eyes. I know how it sounds. I know you must think I'm crazy. That's what she wants you to think. That's what they've been planning all along. But I'm not crazy, baby. I swear on your mother's grave I am not crazy. From the bottom of the stairs, Vanessa's voice drifted up sweet and concerned. Is everything okay up there? Does she need help? Marcus made a decision. Everything's fine, he called back. I'm just getting her settled. He helped Dorothy into her room and closed the door behind them. The room was small and sparse. Nothing like the comfortable suite Dorothy had occupied for the past 35 years. Marcus felt his stomach turn as he took in the bare walls, the thin mattress, the single scratchy blanket. What happened to your real room? He asked. The one down the hall from mine. She moved me in here 3 weeks after you left. Dorothy sank down onto the bed, her frail body trembling with exhaustion. She said the other room was too nice for the help. She said I needed to learn my place. Marcus clenched his fists so tightly, his knuckles turned white. Mama Dorothy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the absolute truth. Do you have any proof? Anything at all that could show me what's been happening? Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up at him with something new in her eyes. Hope. There's a camera, she whispered. The old security system your daddy installed back in 1985. Everyone forgot about it after he passed, but I remembered. The cameras are still there, hidden in the walls. They record to a computer in your daddy's old office. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Are you saying there's footage, actual footage of what Vanessa has been doing to you? Dorothy nodded weakly. I've been trying to stay near the cameras whenever she hurts me. I don't know if it worked. I don't know how to check. But if God is merciful, it will all be there. Everything. Every slap. Every kick. Every piece of garbage she forced down my throat. Marcus leaned down and kissed her forehead. Stay here. Lock the door after I leave. Don't open it for anyone except me. Do you understand? Be careful, baby. Dorothy grabbed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. That woman is dangerous. More dangerous than you know. I know. Marcus stood up. But she picked the wrong family to destroy. He slipped out of the room and waited until he heard the click of the lock behind him. Then he moved quickly and quietly down the hallway toward his father's old office. The office was exactly as Marcus remembered it from his childhood. Dusty bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes. A massive mahogany desk that had seemed like a mountain when he was small. Framed photographs of his mother, his father, and a young Dorothy holding baby Marcus in her arms. In the corner, covered by a white sheet, sat the ancient computer that controlled the security system. Marcus pulled off the sheet and powered it on. The machine groaned and whirred, taking forever to boot up. He kept glancing at the door, terrified that Vanessa would appear at any moment. Finally, the screen flickered to life. Marcus navigated to the security folder with trembling hands. His father had been meticulous about record keeping, and the system was set to automatically save footage in monthly archives. October, November, December. 3 months of footage. Marcus clicked on a random file from November 15th. The kitchen appeared on screen. Empty at first. Then Dorothy walked slowly into frame, reaching for a glass of water from the cabinet. Vanessa appeared behind her. Marcus watched as his wife snatched the glass from Dorothy's hand and hurled it into the sink. He watched as she grabbed the old woman by the collar and dragged her toward the garbage bin. He watched as she picked up a handful of rotting food scraps and shoved them toward Dorothy's mouth, while screaming words that the silent footage couldn't capture, but that Marcus could imagine all too well. He watched Dorothy cry. He watched Dorothy beg. He watched Dorothy eat garbage, while Vanessa stood over her with a smile on her face. Marcus's hands were shaking so badly he could barely control the mouse. He clicked on another file, and another, and another. November 18th. Vanessa slapping Dorothy across the face so hard, the old woman fell to the ground. November 23rd. Vanessa dragging Dorothy by her hair down the hallway, while Dorothy screamed silently on the screen. December 2nd. Vanessa pushing Dorothy out the back door into the freezing rain, and then calmly taking photographs of her shivering in the cold. December 10th. Vanessa and another woman. Someone Marcus didn't recognize, sitting in the living room laughing while looking at something on a tablet. On the floor beside them, Dorothy was scrubbing the tile with a toothbrush, her face wet with tears. December 15th. Vanessa standing over Dorothy's bed in the middle of the night, just standing there, watching her sleep with an expression of pure hatred. Marcus watched for over an hour, file after file, day after day, week after week. 3 months of systematic torture, all documented in crystal-clear footage. By the time he finally stopped, his face was wet with tears he didn't remember shedding. His throat was raw. His hands had clenched into fists so tight that his fingernails had drawn blood from his palms. Everything Dorothy had told him was true. Every single word. His wife was a monster. Marcus saved all the footage onto a flash drive and tucked it into his pocket. He shut down the computer and replaced the sheet, making sure everything looked exactly as it had before. Then he took a deep breath and walked out of the office. Vanessa was waiting for him in the hallway. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. "There you are." She smiled that beautiful, loving smile that he had fallen for 2 years ago. "I was looking all over for you. What were you doing in your father's old office?" Marcus forced himself to meet her eyes. "Just looking at some old photographs. Feeling nostalgic, I guess." Vanessa tilted her head slightly, studying his face. "You've been crying." "Long flight." Marcus shrugged. "Lot of emotions. Seeing Dorothy like that, it hit me harder than I expected." "Of course it did." Vanessa moved closer and slipped her arms around his waist. "You love her so much. That's one of the things I adore about you, Marcus. Your big heart. Your loyalty to the people who raised you." Her perfume filled his nostrils. Her body pressed against his. Her hands stroked his back soothingly. Marcus wanted to vomit. "I'm tired," he said gently, disentangling himself from her embrace. "I think I'll take a nap before dinner." "Of course, baby. You get some rest." Vanessa kissed his cheek. "I'll wake you when dinner's ready." Marcus walked past her toward the guest room. He could feel her eyes on his back, watching, calculating. "Marcus." He stopped, but didn't turn around. "I love you," Vanessa said. "You know that, right? Everything I've done because I love you, and I want to protect this family." "I know," Marcus said. The lie tasted like acid on his tongue. He closed the guest room door behind him and leaned against it, his heart pounding. His mind was racing with plans and possibilities. He needed to be smart about this. Vanessa came from money. Old Charleston money. Her family had connections, lawyers' influence. If he confronted her now, she would find a way to spin it. She would claim the footage was edited. She would paint Dorothy as the aggressor. She would use her fake doctor and her fake medical records to have Dorothy committed before anyone could stop her. No. Marcus needed to build an airtight case. He needed witnesses. He needed official medical examinations proving Dorothy's injuries. He needed lawyers who couldn't be bought or intimidated. And most importantly, he needed to keep Dorothy safe until he could put Vanessa behind bars where she belonged. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Michelle, it's Marcus Caldwell. I need your help. I need the best damn lawyer in Georgia, and I need her tonight." On the other end of the line, attorney Michelle Okonkwo's voice was calm and steady. "Tell me everything." The next morning, Marcus woke before dawn. He hadn't slept more than an hour. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the footage. Dorothy crying. Dorothy begging. Dorothy eating garbage while Vanessa smiled. He slipped out of the guest room and made his way silently down the hallway to Dorothy's door. He knocked softly. "Mama." "Dorothy, it's Marcus. Open up." The lock clicked, and the door cracked open. Dorothy's face appeared in the gap, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Did you find it?" she whispered. "The footage. I found it." Marcus stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Everything you told me was true. I saw it all." Dorothy's face crumpled. She collapsed against him, her frail body shaking with sobs. "Thank you, Lord," she cried. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I prayed so hard, baby. Every night I prayed that God would open your eyes. I was starting to think he had forgotten about me." He didn't forget. Marcus held her gently, afraid of hurting her. "And neither did I. I'm going to get you out of this, Mama Dorothy. I'm going to make sure Vanessa pays for every single thing she did to you." "How?" Dorothy looked up at him with desperate hope. "She's smart, baby. She's been planning this for a long time. She has that doctor woman on her side, and papers saying I'm crazy, and everyone thinks she's such a good wife, such a caring person. Let me worry about that." Marcus guided her to sit on the bed. "I've already called a lawyer, the best in the state. She's coming to meet us tomorrow somewhere Vanessa can't follow. In the meantime, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to keep pretending, just for a few more days. Can you do that? Can you keep acting like nothing has changed?" Dorothy's face paled. "You want me to go back out there with her?" "I know it's hard." Marcus took her hands. "I know it's asking too much, but if Vanessa suspects that I know the truth, she might do something drastic. She might try to have you committed before I can stop her. She might even—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "She might try to kill me." Dorothy's voice was flat. "Is that what you were going to say?" Marcus nodded slowly. Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Her hands trembled in his. Her eyes stared at something far away. Then she straightened her spine and lifted her chin. "I've survived 3 months of that woman's cruelty," she said. "I can survive a few more days, but you have to promise me something, baby." "Anything. Promise me she'll pay." Dorothy's eyes burned with a fire that Marcus had never seen before. "Promise me she'll rot in prison for what she did, not just to me but to anyone else she might hurt in the future. Promise me, Marcus." "I promise." Marcus squeezed her hands. "On my mother's grave, I promise." A knock at the door made them both jump. "Dorothy." Vanessa's voice, sweet as honey. "Are you awake? I brought you some breakfast." Marcus and Dorothy exchanged a look. He gestured for her to stay calm. "Just a minute," Dorothy called out, her voice remarkably steady. Marcus moved quickly to the closet and slipped inside, leaving the door cracked just enough to see. Dorothy opened the door. Vanessa stood in the hallway, holding a tray with a bowl of something gray and unappetizing. "Good morning, Dorothy." Vanessa's smile was radiant. "I made you some oatmeal. You need to keep your strength up." "Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell." Dorothy took the tray with steady hands. "That's very kind of you." "Of course." Vanessa leaned against the doorframe, her eyes scanning the room. Is everything all right? I thought I heard you talking to someone. Just praying. Dorothy clutched the tray tightly. I pray out loud sometimes. Helps me feel closer to the Lord. Vanessa's smile flickered for just a moment. How sweet. Well, eat up. And remember, Dr. Cole is coming by this afternoon for your evaluation. We want to make sure you're doing your best for her, don't we? The threat was clear, even if the words were honey-coated. Yes, ma'am. Dorothy lowered her eyes submissively. I'll be ready. Vanessa lingered for another moment, her gaze sweeping the room one more time. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Dorothy closed the door and leaned against it, her whole body sagging with relief. Marcus emerged from the closet. Doctor, Cole is coming today, he asked quietly. She comes every Tuesday and Friday. Dorothy's voice was bitter. She asks me questions designed to make me sound crazy. Then she writes things in her little notebook and smiles at Vanessa like they're sharing a private joke. Not anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened. I'll handle Dr. Cole. He helped Dorothy sit down and watched as she poked at the oatmeal. It looked watery and unappetizing. Don't eat that, he said suddenly. Dorothy looked up. Why? I don't trust her. Marcus took the bowl and sniffed it cautiously. She could be putting something in your food, something to make you confused or sleepy. Dorothy's face went white. Oh, Lord, I never even thought. She's been bringing me food every day since you left. That's why you've been feeling so weak. Marcus set the bowl aside. I'll bring you food myself from now on, food that I make with my own hands or buy from a restaurant. Don't eat anything she gives you, understand? Dorothy nodded, her eyes filling with fresh tears. Hey. Marcus knelt beside her and took her hands. No more crying. We're going to fight back now, and we're going to win. An hour later, Marcus went downstairs to confront the next piece of the puzzle. He found Patricia in the kitchen, stirring something in a large pot. She was a heavy-set woman in her 50s with kind eyes and nervous hands that never seemed to stop moving. Patricia, she jumped at the sound of his voice, nearly dropping the wooden spoon. Mr. Caldwell, you startled me. She pressed a hand to her chest. Can I get you something coffee breakfast? I need to talk to you. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. In private. Patricia's face changed. The nervous energy drained away, replaced by something that looked like dread. Sir, I don't think... I know what's been happening, Patricia. Marcus cut her off. I've seen the security footage. All of it. Now I need to know what you know. Patricia stared at him for a long moment. Her lower lip trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. I wanted to tell you, she whispered. Every day I wanted to tell you. But she said, Mrs. Caldwell said if any of us talked, she would have us deported. My sister, my nephew, my mother. They're all here on work visas. If I lost this job, if she reported us, I understand. Marcus placed his hand on her shoulder. I'm not angry at you, but I need your help now. I need to know everything you saw, everything you heard. Can you do that? Patricia nodded, wiping her eyes with her apron. For the next 30 minutes, she told him everything. The missed meals, the forced labor, the beatings that happened when Marcus was away, the way Vanessa would transform from monster to angel the instant the phone rang with Marcus's number. She's sick, Patricia said, her voice shaking. Not Miss Dorothy, Mrs. Caldwell. She's sick in her soul. I've never seen anyone take such pleasure in hurting another person. She would smile while Miss Dorothy cried. She would laugh when Miss Dorothy begged for mercy. And that doctor woman, Dr. Cole, she's just as bad. They would sit together in the living room drinking wine and talking about how to make Miss Dorothy look more and more crazy. Would you testify in court? Marcus asked. Would you tell a judge what you just told me? Patricia hesitated. Fear flickered across her face. My family. I'll protect your family. Marcus's voice was firm. I'll get you new visas, permanent ones. I'll make sure you and everyone you love is safe. But I need witnesses, Patricia. I need people who are willing to stand up and tell the truth. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she lifted her chin, and something hardened in her eyes. "Miss Dorothy was the first person in this country who was kind to me," she said. "When my mother was sick, she sat with me all night and prayed. When my nephew needed help with his college applications, she wrote him a recommendation letter. She has a good heart, Mr. Caldwell, the best heart of anyone I know. I won't let that woman destroy her." "Thank you, Patricia." Marcus squeezed her shoulder. "You're very brave." "I'm not brave." Patricia shook her head. "I should have spoken up months ago. I was a coward, but not anymore." Marcus left the kitchen with a growing sense of purpose. One witness down, several more to go. He found James in the garage polishing the black Mercedes with the same meticulous care he had shown for the past 20 years. "James." The driver looked up. He was a solid man in his mid-50s, with gray at his temples and deep lines etched around his eyes. "Mr. Caldwell, welcome home, sir." "I need to ask you something, James. And I need you to tell me the truth, no matter how much it hurts." James set down his polishing cloth. His face was expressionless, but something flickered in his eyes. "What would you like to know, sir? Did you see my wife hurt Dorothy?" Silence. James stared at the ground for a long moment. His jaw worked silently, his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "James." "Yes, sir." The words came out rough and low, like they had been scraped from somewhere deep inside him. "I saw it." "Tell me." James finally looked up. His eyes were wet with unshed tears. "The first time was about 2 weeks after you left for Singapore. I was bringing in the groceries through the kitchen door. I heard shouting. I looked through the window." He stopped, swallowed hard. "What did you see, James?" "I saw Mrs. Caldwell grab Miss Dorothy by the hair and drag her across the kitchen floor. She made her lick up some coffee that had spilled. Said if she couldn't pour it properly, she could clean it up like the dog she was." Marcus closed his eyes. The image burned itself into his mind. "Why didn't you stop her?" "I wanted to." James's voice cracked. "I wanted to burst through that door and pull Miss Dorothy away. But I have 4 grandchildren, Mr. Caldwell. 4 grandchildren who depend on the money I send home every month. If I lost this job, if Mrs. Caldwell blacklisted me—" "I understand, James." "No, sir." James shook his head violently. "With respect, you don't understand. You don't know what it's like to watch someone you love being destroyed and not be able to do anything about it. Miss Dorothy changed my life. When I first came to this country, I didn't speak a word of English. She taught me to read. She helped me get my driver's license. She introduced me to my wife, God rest her soul. I owe that woman everything, and I stood by and watched while she was tortured." James's face crumpled. Tears streamed down his weathered cheeks. "I'm a coward, Mr. Caldwell. A coward and a disgrace. But if you give me a chance to make it right, I will. I'll testify in court. I'll tell the whole world what that woman did. I don't care what happens to me anymore." Marcus put his hand on the older man's shoulder. "You're not a coward, James. You were protecting your family. That's what any good man would do. A good man would have found another way. Maybe, but you have a chance now. A chance to stand up. Will you take it?" James wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. When he looked up, there was steel in his gaze. "Until the end, sir. I'll stand with you and Miss Dorothy until the very end." "Thank you, James." Marcus shook his hand firmly. Then he turned and walked back toward the house. 3 witnesses now. 3 people willing to tell the truth. But he needed more. He needed the fake doctor to crack. He needed official documentation of Dorothy's injuries. He needed to find out just how deep this conspiracy went. And most importantly, he needed to keep Vanessa from suspecting anything until he was ready to strike. That afternoon, Dr. Regina Cole arrived at the house. She was younger than Marcus expected. Late 30s, maybe early 40s, with sharp features and cold eyes behind fashionable glasses. She wore an expensive suit and carried a leather briefcase that looked like it cost more than most people's monthly rent. Marcus intercepted her in the foyer before Vanessa could get to her. "Dr. Cole." He extended his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Marcus Caldwell. I don't think we've met." Dr. Cole's handshake was brief and limp. "Mr. Caldwell, your wife has told me so much about you. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person." "Likewise." Marcus gestured toward the living room. "Can I get you something to drink, water, coffee? I'd like to talk to you about Dorothy's condition before you see her." Dr. Cole's eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course, that would be appropriate." They settled into the living room. Marcus poured coffee while his mind raced with calculations. "So, Dr. Cole, how long have you been treating Dorothy?" "Approximately 2 months." Dr. Cole crossed her legs and pulled out a small notebook. "Your wife contacted me after she noticed some concerning behaviors: confusion, paranoia, mood swings. Classic early indicators of dementia. And what's your professional opinion?" "Based on my observations, Dorothy is exhibiting moderate to severe cognitive decline. She has difficulty distinguishing reality from fantasy. She makes accusations against people who have done nothing but help her. She engages in self-destructive behaviors, such as refusing food and wandering outside in dangerous weather conditions." Marcus nodded slowly, his face carefully blank. "That sounds very serious." "It is." Dr. Cole leaned forward earnestly. "Mr. Caldwell, I know how difficult this must be for you. Dorothy has been part of your family for decades. But sometimes the kindest thing we can do for someone we love is to ensure they get professional care. My clinic, Serenity Hills, specializes in cases like Dorothy's. She would be safe there, comfortable, well cared for." "I see." Marcus set down his coffee cup. "Tell me, Dr. Cole, what medical school did you attend?" Dr. Cole blinked. "Excuse me. Medical school. Where did you get your degree?" Emory University. Why do you ask?" "And you're currently licensed to practice psychiatry in Georgia." Something flickered across Dr. Cole's face. Something that looked like fear. "Of course I am. What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Because I had my assistant do some research this morning, and according to the Georgia Composite Medical Board, your license was revoked 3 years ago for ethical violations. Something about overprescribing controlled substances and falsifying patient records." The color drained from Dr. Cole's face. That's a misunderstanding. There was an appeal." "There was no appeal." Marcus's voice hardened. "You lost your license and you never got it back, which means every diagnosis you've made, every document you've signed, every treatment you've recommended for Dorothy is completely worthless and probably illegal." Dr. Cole stood up abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this." "No, you don't." Marcus stood up too, blocking her path to the door. "But you should, because right now you have a choice. You can tell me exactly what you and my wife have been planning, and maybe I'll consider not pressing charges. Or you can walk out that door and take your chances with the district attorney." Dr. Cole's mask of professionalism crumbled. Her eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal looking for escape. I didn't. Vanessa said." "What did Vanessa say?" "She said it would be easy." The words burst out of Dr. Cole in a panicked rush. "She said all I had to do was write some reports saying the old woman was crazy. She said no one would question it because Dorothy was just the help. She said she would pay me $50,000, and when Dorothy was committed, there would be another $50,000. I needed the money. My practice was gone. I was about to lose my house. I didn't have any other choice." "You could have chosen not to help torture an innocent woman." "I didn't torture anyone." "Doctor." Cole was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I just wrote reports. I never laid a hand on her." "But you knew." Marcus's voice was ice cold. "You knew what Vanessa was doing to her, and you helped cover it up. That makes you an accessory." Dr. Cole collapsed back onto the couch, her head in her hands. "What do you want from me?" "I want the truth. All of it. On record." Marcus pulled out his phone and pressed the record button. "I want you to tell me exactly what you and Vanessa planned. Every conversation, every document, every lie, And then I want you to sign a sworn statement confirming everything you've said." Dr. Cole looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "And if I do that, what happens to me? That depends on how cooperative you are." Marcus's face was stone. "But I promise you this, if you help me protect Dorothy, I'll make sure the judge knows. And if you don't—" He let the threat hang in the air. Dr. Cole stared at him for a long moment. Then her shoulders slumped in defeat. "All right," she whispered. "I'll tell you everything." For the next hour, Dr. Cole spilled every detail of the conspiracy. The fake diagnoses, the staged photographs, the plan to have Dorothy committed to Serenity Hills, which wasn't a legitimate care facility at all, but a private institution where wealthy families could dump inconvenient relatives and forget about them. She told Marcus about the money Vanessa had promised her, about the forged documents they had created together, about the way they had laughed over wine while discussing how easy it was to make an old black woman look crazy. Marcus recorded every word. When Dr. Cole was finally finished, she looked at him with hollow eyes. "Are you going to have me arrested now?" "Not yet." Marcus stood up. "First you're going to write that sworn statement. Then you're going to disappear until I tell you otherwise. And if I find out you've warned Vanessa about this conversation, I will personally make sure you spend the next 20 years in prison. Do you understand?" Dr. Cole nodded miserably. "Good." Marcus walked to the door. "My lawyer will contact you with further instructions. Now get out of my house." He watched Dr. Cole scurry out the front door, then turned to find Vanessa standing at the top of the stairs. His heart stopped. How long had she been there? How much had she heard? "Marcus!" Vanessa descended the stairs slowly, her face a mask of concern. What was that all about? Why did Dr. Cole leave so quickly? Marcus forced himself to breathe normally. "Change of plans," he said casually. "I told her we wouldn't need her services anymore." Vanessa stopped mid-step. "What, why?" "Because I've decided to take Dorothy to see my own doctor, Dr. Patterson. You remember him. He's been our family physician for 30 years. I trust him to give us an honest assessment." Something flickered across Vanessa's face. Fear, anger. It was gone too quickly for Marcus to identify. That's wonderful, baby." Her smile was back in place, bright and loving. "I think that's a great idea. We should definitely get a second opinion. I thought you'd agree." They stared at each other for a moment. The air between them felt charged electric with unspoken tension. Then Vanessa broke the silence. "Well, I should go check on dinner. Patricia is making your favorite. Pot roast with roasted vegetables." "Sounds delicious." Vanessa walked past him toward the kitchen. As she passed, she placed her hand briefly on his chest. "I'm so glad you're home, Marcus. I missed you so much." "I missed you too." The words felt like broken glass in his mouth. After Vanessa disappeared into the kitchen, Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to his lawyer. "Phase 1 complete. Dr. Cole is cooperating. Moving to Phase 2. Michelle's response came immediately. "Good work. I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow. Keep your head down until then." Marcus tucked his phone away and headed upstairs to check on Dorothy. He found her sitting by the window, staring out at the garden below. The afternoon sun caught the silver in her hair, making it gleam like a halo. "Mama Dorothy." She turned. There were dark circles under her eyes, but something had changed in her expression. The fear was still there, but underneath it, Marcus could see something new. Hope. "Did you find out anything?" she asked. "I found out everything." Marcus sat down beside her. Dr. Cole confessed. "She's not even a real doctor anymore. She lost her license years ago. Everything she wrote about you is worthless." Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "So people will believe me. They'll finally believe me. They'll believe you." Marcus took her hand. "I have the security footage. I have Dr. Cole's confession. I have witnesses from the staff who saw what Vanessa did. And tomorrow my lawyer is going to start building a case that will put Vanessa behind bars for the rest of her life." Dorothy broke down sobbing. She fell against Marcus's chest, her frail body shaking with relief and exhaustion and years of pent-up pain. "Thank you, Lord," she cried. "Thank you for sending my boy home. Thank you for opening his eyes." Marcus held her close, tears streaming down his own face. "I'm sorry, Mama Dorothy. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm so sorry I ever doubted you." "Hush, baby." Dorothy pulled back and cupped his face in her wrinkled hands. "You're here now. That's all that matters." They sat together in the fading afternoon light, two survivors clinging to each other in the wreckage of what should have been a loving home. Outside the window, the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A storm was coming. But for the first time in 3 months, Dorothy Washington wasn't afraid. Because this time, she wouldn't be facing it alone. That night, Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Vanessa was beside him, her breathing slow and even in sleep. He watched her in this darkness. Her beautiful face so peaceful. Her perfectly manicured hands resting on the silk sheets. Her designer nightgown that probably cost more than Dorothy's entire wardrobe. How had he missed it? How had he married a monster and never seen the truth? He thought back to their first meeting at a charity gala in Charleston. Vanessa had been dazzling, charming, sophisticated. Everything Marcus thought he wanted in a wife. She had pursued him relentlessly, showing up at his office with homemade lunches, sending him thoughtful gifts that showed she had been paying attention to his interests, laughing at all his jokes, listening intently to his stories about growing up poor, about the woman who had raised him, about his dreams of giving back to the community. She had been so interested in Dorothy, so eager to meet the woman who had shaped Marcus into the man he had become. "She sounds amazing," Vanessa had said, her eyes wide with admiration. "I would love to meet her someday. I hope she'll approve of me." Marcus had been touched. He had thought it showed depth of character, this desire to connect with his roots. Now he understood it for what it really was. Research. Vanessa had been studying her target, learning everything she could about the woman who stood between her and complete control over Marcus's life and fortune. Because that's what this was really about, wasn't it? Money. The Caldwell fortune. The tech empire Marcus had built from nothing. The billions of dollars that would go to his heirs when he died. And who would those heirs be? Vanessa, if she had her way. Only Vanessa. But Dorothy was an obstacle. Dorothy was named in Marcus's will. Dorothy would receive a generous trust fund when Marcus passed. And more importantly, Dorothy was the one person who might see through Vanessa's carefully constructed facade. So Dorothy had to go. Not killed outright. That would be too suspicious. Too risky. No, Vanessa's plan was much more elegant than that. Drive Dorothy crazy. Or at least make everyone believe she was crazy. Get her committed to a facility where she would be forgotten, isolated, helpless. And eventually, when she died alone in that place, no one would question it. Just a sad old woman whose mind had failed her at the end. It was diabolical. It was brilliant. And it had almost worked. Marcus turned his head and looked at his wife sleeping beside him. This woman who had shared his bed, his life, his secrets. This woman who had kissed him goodnight while plotting the destruction of the person he loved most in the world. He felt nothing but cold, clear hatred. "You're going to pay," he whispered into the darkness. "For every tear, for every bruise, for every piece of garbage you forced her to eat. You're going to pay for all of it." Vanessa stirred slightly but didn't wake. Marcus closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. The next morning, Marcus received a text from his lawyer. "Papers ready. Meeting at 2 p.m. Don't be followed." He dressed carefully, casual but presentable. He told Vanessa he had some business to attend to downtown. "On your second day back?" She pouted prettily. "I was hoping we could spend the day together." "Soon," Marcus promised. "Once I get these loose ends tied up, I'll take a whole week off. We can go to the beach house, just the two of us." Vanessa's face lit up. "Really? You promise?" I promise. Another lie. Another piece of poison in his mouth. He kissed her cheek and headed for the door. Marcus. He turned. Vanessa was standing in the foyer, her silk robe catching the morning light. She looked beautiful. Angelic even. Be careful out there, she said. I don't know what I'd do if anything happened to you. I'll be fine. He walked out the door without looking back. The law offices of Okonkwo and Associates occupied the top floor of a glass tower in downtown Atlanta. Marcus took the elevator up, his heart pounding with anticipation. Michelle Okonkwo was waiting for him in the conference room. She was a striking woman in her late 40s with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that seemed to see right through you. Mr. Caldwell. She shook his hand firmly. Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Marcus sat. Michelle spread a stack of documents across the table. I've reviewed everything you sent me, she said. The security footage, Dr. Cole's confession, the witness statements. It's damning, absolutely damning. So we have a case. We have more than a case. Michelle's eyes gleamed. We have a slam dunk. Your wife is going to prison, Mr. Caldwell. The only question is for how long? Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. What's our next step? First, we need to get Dorothy examined by a legitimate physician. Someone who can document her injuries and testify that she's mentally competent. I have a colleague at Emory who specializes in geriatric medicine. She's discreet and she's good. Done. What else? We need to file for an emergency protective order. That will legally prevent Vanessa from coming within 500 feet of Dorothy. It will also give us grounds to remove Dorothy from the house and place her somewhere safe while the criminal case proceeds. How quickly can we do that? I can have the paperwork filed by end of day today. We should have a hearing within 72 hours. Marcus nodded. What about criminal charges? That's trickier. Michelle leaned back in her chair. Elder abuse is a serious felony in Georgia. With the evidence we have, Vanessa is looking at 5 to 20 years. But her family has money. They'll hire the best defense lawyers they can find. They'll try to delay, obfuscate plea bargain down to something lesser. I don't want a plea bargain. Marcus's voice was hard. I want her to stand trial. I want the whole world to see what she did. Then we need to make sure our case is bulletproof. I want depositions from every witness. I want the security footage authenticated by forensic experts. I want a paper trail showing Vanessa's payments to Dr. Cole. I want everything so airtight that no jury in the world could acquit her. How long will that take? 6 months. Maybe 8. Michelle held up her hand before Marcus could protest. I know that sounds like a long time. But trust me, Mr. Caldwell, I've seen too many cases fall apart because the prosecution rushed to trial. We're not going to make that mistake. We're going to build this case brick by brick until it's an unassailable fortress. Marcus took a deep breath. All right, 6 months. But in this meantime, I want Dorothy safe. Completely safe. I don't trust Vanessa not to try something desperate. Understood. Michelle made a note. I'll arrange for private security. 24-hour protection. No one gets near Dorothy without going through them first. Good. Marcus stood up. Is there anything else I need to do today? Just one thing. Michelle looked at him with something like sympathy. You need to keep up appearances with your wife. Just a little longer. If she suspects that you're building a case against her, she might flee. Or destroy evidence. Or do something to Dorothy that we can't undo. I understand. I know it's hard. Michelle stood up and walked around the table. Playing nice with someone who's done such terrible things. But think of it as a mission. You're a soldier going undercover in enemy territory. Every smile, every kiss, every I love you is just ammunition you're stockpiling for the final battle. Marcus nodded slowly. When this is over, when Vanessa is behind bars, I want to set up a foundation. Something to help other elderly people who are being abused by the people who should be caring for them. Michelle smiled. That's a beautiful idea, Mr. Caldwell. Let's make sure we win this fight first. Then we can start thinking about the future. They shook hands. Thank you, Michelle. For everything. Thank me when Vanessa is in prison. Until then, we have work to do. Marcus drove home with a strange mixture of hope and dread churning in his stomach. Hope, because for the first time since he had walked through his front door, he felt like he had a real plan. A path forward. A way to save Dorothy and destroy the woman who had tormented her. And dread, because he knew the hardest part was still ahead. He had to go home. He had to smile at his wife. He had to pretend that everything was normal. When he walked through the front door, Vanessa was waiting for him with a glass of wine and a loving smile. How was your meeting, baby? Be productive. Marcus accepted the wine but didn't drink it. Very productive. I'm so glad. Vanessa slipped her arm through his. Dinner is almost ready. Patricia made that pasta you love, and afterward I thought we could watch a movie together, like old times. Marcus looked down at his wife, at her beautiful face, at her perfect smile, at the monster hiding behind those loving eyes. That sounds wonderful, he said. And the game continued. But now finally, Marcus knew how it would end. 3 days had passed since Marcus discovered the truth. 3 days of smiling at Vanessa across the dinner table. 3 days of kissing her goodnight. 3 days of pretending that his heart wasn't filled with cold, burning hatred every time she touched him. Dorothy was still in the house, but everything had changed. Marcus had moved her to a room closer to his own. He brought her meals himself, food that he had personally prepared or purchased from restaurants he trusted. He checked on her every few hours, making sure Vanessa hadn't found a way to get to her. And every night after Vanessa fell asleep, Marcus would slip into his father's old office and watch more footage. Hours and hours of footage, each clip more horrifying than the last. He was building his case, brick by brick, just like Michelle had told him. But Vanessa wasn't stupid. And on the morning of the 4th day, Marcus realized that she was starting to suspect something. It began at breakfast. Vanessa sat across from him sipping her coffee with an expression that seemed casual, but wasn't. Her eyes kept darting to his face, studying him, searching for something. You've been spending a lot of time with Dorothy lately, she said. Marcus didn't look up from his phone. She raised me. I want to make sure she's comfortable. Of course you do. Vanessa set down her cup. But don't you think it's a little excessive? You've barely spent any time with me since you got home. I've been busy. Work stuff. Work stuff. Vanessa's voice had an edge to it now. You've been locked in your father's old office for hours every night. What kind of work are you doing in there, Marcus? Marcus's blood ran cold, but he kept his face neutral. Going through old files. Dad left a lot of paperwork that never got sorted. I figured now was as good a time as any to deal with it. Vanessa stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes were sharp, probing, suspicious. Then she smiled. You work too hard, baby. You need to relax. Why don't we go out tonight dinner at that Italian place you love? Just the two of us. Maybe this weekend. Marcus stood up. I have meetings today. He walked out of the kitchen before she could respond, but he could feel her eyes on his back, watching, calculating. She knew something was wrong. Marcus needed to move faster. He called Michelle from his car. We have a problem. Vanessa is getting suspicious. She's been asking questions about why I'm spending so much time in my father's office. Michelle's voice was calm but urgent. Did she see anything? The footage? The files? I don't think so, but she's smart. It's only a matter of time before she figures out what I'm doing. Then we need to accelerate the timeline. I'll file the emergency protective order today. We should have a hearing by Friday. That's 2 days away. A lot can happen in 2 days. I know. Michelle paused. Marcus, I need you to listen to me carefully. If Vanessa realizes what's happening, she might try to run. Or worse, she might try to do something to Dorothy before we can protect her. You need to keep Dorothy safe, whatever it takes. I will. Marcus hung up and sat in his car for a moment, his mind racing. He needed to get Dorothy out of that house. Today. Right now. Before Vanessa could do anything. But how? If he tried to move Dorothy openly, Vanessa would demand to know why. She would make a scene. She might even try to stop him physically. He needed a distraction. Something to keep Vanessa occupied while he got Dorothy to safety. An idea formed in his mind. Marcus pulled out his phone and made another call. "James, I need your help. Meet me at the house in 1 hour. And bring the van, not the Mercedes." James's voice was steady. "Yes, sir. I'll be there." Marcus drove home with his heart pounding. He parked in the garage and entered through the back door, avoiding the kitchen where Vanessa was probably still sitting. He went straight to Dorothy's room. She was sitting by the window, just like she always did. But when she saw his face, she immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. "We're leaving." Marcus grabbed a small suitcase from the closet. "Right now, today, I'm getting you out of here." Dorothy's eyes went wide. "But I thought we were waiting for the lawyer." "Change of plans. Vanessa is getting suspicious. I can't risk leaving you here another night." Dorothy stood up slowly, her frail body trembling. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. A hotel downtown. My lawyer is arranging private security. No one will be able to get to you." "What about you?" Marcus stopped packing and looked at her. "What do you mean?" "If you take me away, Vanessa will know something is wrong. She'll know you've turned against her." Dorothy's voice was filled with fear. "What will she do to you, baby?" "Let me worry about that." Marcus resumed packing. "The only thing that matters right now is getting you safe." Dorothy reached out and grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Marcus Jerome Caldwell, you look at me." He stopped. He looked. Dorothy's eyes were fierce, burning with a fire that her broken body couldn't contain. "I have loved you since the day you were born," she said. "I have protected you, raised you, prayed for you every single day of your life. I will not let you put yourself in danger for me. Do you understand? Mama Dorothy?" "No." Her voice was firm. "If we're doing this, we're doing it together. You're not leaving me in some hotel while you go back to face that woman alone. Either we both go or neither of us goes." Marcus stared at her. This woman who had survived 3 months of torture. This woman who had been beaten, starved, humiliated, broken. And still her first thought was protecting him. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, we'll figure something out. But we need to move now." A soft knock at the door made them both freeze. "Dorothy." Vanessa's voice, sweet as poison. "Are you in there? I brought you some tea." Marcus's heart stopped. He looked around frantically for somewhere to hide, but there was nowhere. The closet was too small. The window didn't open. Dorothy grabbed his hand and squeezed. "Get behind the door," she whispered. "I'll handle this." "But trust me, baby. I've been playing this game for 3 months. I know how to handle her." Marcus hesitated for one agonizing second. Then he moved silently behind the door, pressing himself flat against the wall. Dorothy took a deep breath and opened the door. Vanessa stood in the hallway holding a steaming cup. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes were cold. "Good morning, Dorothy. How are you feeling today?" "Better, ma'am. Thank you for asking." Vanessa stepped into the room, her gaze sweeping across every corner. "I brought you some chamomile tea. It's supposed to be calming, good for the nerves." "That's very kind of you." Vanessa handed her the cup. Dorothy took it with steady hands, even though her heart was pounding so hard she was sure Vanessa could hear it. "You know," Vanessa said, moving further into the room, "I've been thinking about what's best for you, Dorothy. This room is so small and dark. Maybe we should move you somewhere more comfortable, somewhere with more light." Dorothy kept her face blank. "I'm fine here, ma'am. I don't want to be a burden." "Nonsense." Vanessa's smile widened. "You're not a burden. You're family, and family takes care of each other, don't they?" Behind the door. Marcus held his breath. Vanessa was less than 3 feet away from him. If she turned her head even slightly, she would see him. "Have you seen Marcus this morning?" Vanessa asked casually. "No, ma'am. I've been in my room since I woke up." "Strange." Vanessa tilted her head. "His car is in the garage, but I can't find him anywhere. It's almost like he's hiding from me." Dorothy said nothing. Vanessa moved closer to her, so close that Dorothy could smell her expensive perfume. "You wouldn't be hiding anything from me, would you, Dorothy? You wouldn't be keeping secrets." "I don't know what you mean, ma'am." "I think you do." Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "I think you've been talking to Marcus, filling his head with lies about me, trying to turn my own husband against me." "I haven't said anything to anyone." "Really?" Vanessa's hand shot out and grabbed Dorothy's wrist, hard. "Then why has he been acting so strange? Why does he look at me like I'm a stranger? What did you tell him?" Dorothy gasped in pain, but didn't cry out. "Nothing. I swear I haven't said anything." "Liar." Vanessa twisted her grip. "You've been plotting against me since the day I married Marcus. You never wanted him to be happy. You wanted him all to yourself, didn't you? Your precious baby boy. Please, you're hurting me." "Good." Vanessa leaned in close, her lips almost touching Dorothy's ear. "Listen to me carefully, old woman. I don't know what you're planning, but it's not going to work. Marcus is mine. This house is mine. And when I'm done with you, no one will even remember your name. Do you understand?" Dorothy closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I said, do you understand?" "Yes," Dorothy whispered. "I understand." Vanessa released her wrist and stepped back. Her smile returned bright and beautiful and completely empty. "Good. Now drink your tea and stay in your room. I don't want to see your face for the rest of the day." She turned and walked toward the door. Marcus pressed himself harder against the wall, his heart hammering in his chest. Vanessa paused at the threshold. Her hand rested on the doorframe, inches from where Marcus was standing. "Oh, and Dorothy, one more thing." "Yes, ma'am." Vanessa looked over her shoulder, her eyes glittering with malice. "If I find out you've been talking to anyone about what happens in this house, I will make the last 3 months look like a vacation. Do you believe me?" Dorothy nodded silently. "Good girl." Vanessa walked out and closed the door behind her. For a long moment, neither Marcus nor Dorothy moved. They waited, barely breathing, until the sound of Vanessa's heels faded down the hallway. Then Marcus stepped out from behind the door. His face was white. His hands were shaking with rage. "I'm going to kill her," he whispered. "I swear to God, I'm going to kill her." "No." Dorothy grabbed his arm. "No, baby. That's not who you are. That's not how we're going to win this. You heard what she said. You heard how she threatened you. I've heard worse." Dorothy's voice was calm, steadier than it had any right to be. "Every day for 3 months I've heard worse. But I survived. And I survived because I knew that one day the truth would come out. One day God would send you home to save me. And he did. He did, baby." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her as gently as he could. She felt so small, so fragile, like she might break if he squeezed too hard. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you." "You're protecting me now." Dorothy pulled back and looked up at him with those warm brown eyes. "That's all that matters. Now let's get out of this house before she comes back." They moved quickly. Marcus grabbed the suitcase he had packed, while Dorothy gathered a few precious items. A photograph of Marcus's mother, her Bible, a small jewelry box that contained her wedding ring. Marcus texted James. "Back door, now." 2 minutes later, James pulled the van up to the rear entrance. Marcus helped Dorothy into the back seat and climbed in beside her. "Where to, sir?" James asked. "The Ritz-Carlton downtown. I have a suite reserved under a different name." James nodded and pulled away from the house. Marcus watched through the rear window as his childhood home grew smaller and smaller. Inside that house, Vanessa was probably still looking for him, still wondering where he had gone, still plotting her next move. She would find out soon enough. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Michelle. "Emergency protective order filed. Hearing scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. Don't let Dorothy out of your sight until then." Marcus typed back, "She's with me now. We're at a hotel. Private security arriving within the hour." Michelle's response was immediate. Good, stay safe. The real fight starts Friday. Marcus looked over at Dorothy. She was staring out the window, watching the city pass by. Her face was tired, but peaceful. Mama Dorothy. She turned to him. Are you okay? Dorothy smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her since he came home. I'm better than okay, baby. For the first time in 3 months I can breathe. They arrived at the hotel 20 minutes later. Marcus had reserved the penthouse suite under the name of one of his shell companies. Nothing that could be traced back to him. The room was large and comfortable, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline. Marcus ordered room service while Dorothy took a long hot bath, the first she had been allowed in months. When she emerged wrapped in a fluffy white robe, she looked almost like her old self. The color had returned to her cheeks. The fear had faded from her eyes. This is nice, she said, settling into an armchair. Very fancy. Only the best for my Mama Dorothy. She laughed softly. You spoil me too much. Impossible. Marcus sat down across from her. After everything you've done for me, there's no such thing as spoiling you too much. They ate dinner together, just the two of them, like they used to do when Marcus was a boy. Dorothy told stories about his childhood, the time he tried to cook breakfast and nearly burned the house down, the time he got lost at the county fair, and she found him sitting calmly by the cotton candy stand. The time he came home from school crying because a bully had called him names, and she marched right up to that boy's mother and gave her a piece of her mind. Marcus listened and laughed and felt something loosening in his chest. Something that had been wound tight for days. For a few hours, he almost forgot about Vanessa. Almost forgot about the court hearing. Almost forgot about everything except this moment, this room, this woman who had been his mother in every way that mattered. Then his phone rang. Marcus looked at the screen. Vanessa. His stomach dropped. Don't answer it, Dorothy said quietly. I have to. Marcus took a deep breath. If I don't, she'll know something is wrong. He pressed the button and lifted the phone to his ear. Hey, baby. Marcus. Vanessa's voice was ice cold. Where are you? Downtown. Business meeting ran late. Really? It wasn't a question. Because I came home to find Dorothy gone. Her room is empty. Her things are missing. And you're telling me you're at a business meeting. Marcus's mind raced. I moved her to a facility. A care facility. I thought it would be better for her given her condition. Silence on the other end. Then Vanessa laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You're lying to me, Marcus. I can always tell when you're lying. You do this thing with your voice, this little hesitation like you're trying to remember the script. Vanessa. I know what you're doing. Her voice dropped to a hiss. I know you found the footage. I know you've been talking to lawyers. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I'm stupid? Marcus closed his eyes. There was no point in pretending anymore. How did you know? I have friends, Marcus. Friends in high places. Friends who tell me things. Like when a certain attorney files an emergency protective order against me. Did you really think that wouldn't get back to me within hours? Marcus gripped the phone tighter. It's over, Vanessa. I know everything. The abuse, the fake doctor, the plan to have Dorothy committed. All of it. You don't know anything. Vanessa's voice was venomous. You think you have evidence, I'll destroy it. You think you have witnesses, I'll discredit them. You think you can take me down, I come from one of the oldest families in Charleston. I have money power connections you can't even imagine. By the time I'm done, you'll be the one who looks crazy. You'll be the one everyone turns against. We'll see about that. Yes. Vanessa's voice turned soft, almost sweet. We will. But Marcus, one more thing. What? Enjoy your time with Dorothy while you can. Because I promise you, when this is over, that old woman is going to wish she had died 3 months ago. The line went dead. Marcus sat frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear. His hand was shaking. What did she say? Dorothy's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus looked at her. At the fear returning to her eyes. At the way her hands had started trembling again. He wouldn't let Vanessa win. He couldn't. She said she knows. Marcus set the phone down. She knows about the protective order. She knows I found the footage. She's going to fight back. Lord have mercy. Dorothy pressed her hand to her heart. What are we going to do? Marcus stood up and walked to the window. The city sparkled below him, millions of lights stretching toward the horizon. We're going to war, he said quietly. And we're going to win. He pulled out his phone and called Michelle. She knows. Vanessa knows everything. Michelle's voice was sharp. How? Someone at the courthouse tipped her off. She called me 5 minutes ago. She's going to try to destroy the evidence, discredit the witnesses, turn this whole thing around on me. Let her try. Michelle's voice was steel. I've dealt with people like Vanessa before. Rich, entitled, convinced they're untouchable. They always underestimate how much people hate them. We have the truth on our side, Marcus. And in the end, the truth always wins. I hope you're right. I know I'm right. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we prepare for war. Marcus hung up and turned back to Dorothy. She was sitting very still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes closed. Her lips were moving silently. She was praying. Marcus watched her for a moment. Then he walked over and knelt beside her chair. Mama Dorothy. She opened her eyes. Whatever happens, Marcus said, I want you to know that I love you. More than anything in this world. And I will never, ever let anyone hurt you again. Dorothy reached out and touched his face. Her hand was warm and soft, the same hand that had comforted him through every nightmare of his childhood. I know, baby, she said. I've always known. Outside the window, the city lights glittered like stars. Somewhere across town, Vanessa Caldwell was making plans of her own. The battle lines had been drawn, and Friday was only 2 days away. Friday morning arrived like a storm. Marcus hadn't slept. He had spent the entire night reviewing documents with Michelle, preparing for every possible attack Vanessa might launch. They had gone through the security footage frame by frame. They had rehearsed Dorothy's testimony until she could recite it in her sleep. They had anticipated every lie, every manipulation, every dirty trick that Vanessa's lawyers might try. Now it was time. Marcus helped Dorothy into the car at exactly 8:15 a.m. She was wearing her best dress, the navy blue one she had saved for special occasions. Her silver hair was neatly combed. Her hands were steady, but Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. You're going to be okay, he said quietly. I'll be right there with you the whole time. Dorothy nodded, but didn't speak. She was saving her strength for what lay ahead. They arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse at 9:30 a.m. A crowd of reporters had already gathered outside. Word had leaked somehow. The story of the tech billionaire and his abused housekeeper had spread like wildfire across social media. Marcus shielded Dorothy from the cameras as they pushed through the crowd. Microphones were shoved in their faces. Questions were shouted from every direction. Mr. Caldwell, is it true? Your wife tortured this woman for 3 months? Dorothy, how do you feel about facing your abuser in court? Mr. Caldwell, do you have any comment on allegations that you neglected your own household? Marcus said nothing. He kept his arm around Dorothy and walked straight ahead until they were safely inside the courthouse. Michelle was waiting for them in the hallway. They're already here, she said. Vanessa and her legal team. They arrived 30 minutes ago. How does she look? Marcus asked. Confident, too confident. Michelle's jaw tightened. She's got Thomas Wright representing her, former state attorney general. He's expensive, he's ruthless, and he's never lost a case. There's a first time for everything. Michelle nodded. Let's hope so. Court's in session in 20 minutes. Are you ready, Dorothy? Dorothy lifted her chin. I've been ready for 3 months. They entered the courtroom at exactly 9:55 a.m. Vanessa was already seated at the defendant's table. She was wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair was perfectly styled. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a socialite attending a charity luncheon, not a woman facing charges of elder abuse. When she saw Marcus, she smiled. It was the same loving, beautiful smile she had given him on their wedding day. The same smile she had used to seduce him, to manipulate him, to blind him to the monster she really was. Marcus felt his stomach turn. He guided Dorothy to the plaintiff's table and helped her into her seat. She was trembling slightly, but her face remained calm. "Don't look at her," Marcus whispered. "Focus on the judge. Focus on telling your truth." Dorothy nodded. The bailiff's voice rang out across the courtroom. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Hammond presiding." Everyone stood as the judge entered. She was a stern-looking woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for having zero tolerance for theatrics. "Be seated," she said. "This hearing will come to order." Judge Hammond reviewed the documents in front of her for a long moment. Then she looked up, her gaze sweeping across both tables. "We are here today to consider an emergency protective order filed by Marcus Caldwell on behalf of Dorothy Washington against Vanessa Caldwell. Mrs. Caldwell, you are accused of physical and emotional abuse against Ms. Washington over a period of approximately 3 months. How do you plead?" Vanessa's lawyer, Thomas Wright, stood up. He was a tall man with silver hair and the smooth, practiced voice of someone who had spent decades in courtrooms. "Not guilty, Your Honor. My client categorically denies all allegations. We intend to prove that Miss Washington is suffering from severe dementia, and that all so-called evidence of abuse is either fabricated or misinterpreted." Judge Hammond turned to Michelle. "Counselor, you may present your case." Michelle stood. "Thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff will prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Vanessa Caldwell systematically abused Dorothy Washington for 3 months while her husband was overseas. We have video evidence, medical documentation, and multiple witnesses who will testify to the defendant's cruelty." "Proceed." Michelle walked to the center of the courtroom. "Your Honor, I would like to begin by showing the court footage from the Caldwell residence's security system. This footage was captured over a 3-month period and clearly shows Mrs. Caldwell physically and emotionally abusing Ms. Washington." The lights dimmed. A screen lowered from the ceiling. The first video began to play. The courtroom watched in horrified silence as Vanessa grabbed Dorothy by the hair and dragged her across the kitchen floor. They heard the sickening crack of a slap across an old woman's face. They saw Vanessa shove rotting food into Dorothy's mouth while laughing. Marcus watched the jury's faces. Some of them looked away. One woman covered her mouth with her hand. A man in the back row was openly weeping. When the footage ended, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. Michelle turned to face the judge. "Your Honor, we have over 200 hours of similar footage. Every day for 3 months, Mrs. Caldwell subjected Ms. Washington to beatings, starvation, humiliation, and psychological torture." Thomas Wright stood up immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. This footage has not been authenticated. For all we know, it could be fabricated using artificial intelligence." "Your Honor," Michelle replied calmly, "we have a sworn affidavit from a forensic video expert confirming that this footage is authentic and unaltered. I submit this document as Exhibit A." Judge Hammond reviewed the affidavit. "Objection overruled. The footage will be admitted as evidence." Vanessa's face flickered. For just a moment, Marcus saw something behind the mask. Fear. Good, he thought. Be afraid. Michelle continued. "I would now like to call our first witness, Dorothy Washington." Dorothy rose slowly from her seat. Marcus squeezed her hand as she passed. "You can do this," he whispered. Dorothy walked to the witness stand with her head held high. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Michelle approached her gently. "Ms. Washington, can you tell the court how long you have worked for the Caldwell family?" 35 years. Dorothy's voice was soft but clear. "I started when Marcus was just a baby. His mama had passed, and his daddy needed help raising him." "And would you describe your relationship with Marcus Caldwell?" Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "He's like my own son. I raised him. I changed his diapers, helped him with his homework, held him when he cried. I love that boy more than life itself." Can you describe what happened when Mrs. Vanessa Caldwell moved into the house? Dorothy took a deep breath. At first she was sweet, real sweet. She would bring me tea and ask about my day. I thought Marcus had found himself a good wife. And when did things change? About a week after Marcus left for Singapore. That's when she showed her true face. Can you describe what she did to you? Dorothy closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were filled with pain. She stopped letting me eat at the table, said the help doesn't eat with family. Then she stopped letting me eat with the other staff. Then she started giving me less food, just scraps. Then nothing but what she pulled from the garbage. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. She made me clean the house on my hands and knees. If I didn't finish fast enough, she'd take away my blankets. She'd lock me outside in the cold for hours. She'd hit me, slap me, pull my hair, and she'd laugh while she did it. Dorothy's voice broke. Tears streamed down her weathered cheeks. She told me I was worthless. She told me no one would believe me. She told me she was going to have me committed to a mental institution where I would die alone and forgotten. Michelle handed her a tissue. Did you try to tell anyone what was happening? I couldn't. She threatened me. She said if I told anyone, she would make sure I was locked away forever. She had a doctor woman, Dr. Cole, who came to the house and wrote reports saying I was crazy. They were planning to have me committed before Marcus came home. And why didn't you try to escape? Dorothy looked directly at the jury. Where was I supposed to go? I'm 68 years old. I don't have any family left. That house has been my home for 35 years. And I kept hoping, kept praying that Marcus would come back and see the truth. No further questions, Your Honor. Thomas Wright stood up. His face was a mask of professional sympathy, but his eyes were cold. Ms. Washington, I'm very sorry for what you claim to have experienced, but I have to ask you some difficult questions. Dorothy nodded. Is it true that you have experienced memory problems in recent months? No, sir. My memory is fine. Really? Thomas picked up a document from his table. Because I have here a report from Dr. Regina Cole stating that you showed signs of severe cognitive decline, including paranoid delusions and memory lapses. That woman is a liar. Dorothy's voice was sharp. She came to the house to help Vanessa make me look crazy. They planned the whole thing together. So you're saying that a licensed psychiatrist fabricated her medical reports? Michelle stood up. Objection, Your Honor. Dr. Regina Cole's medical license was revoked 3 years ago for ethical violations. She is not a licensed psychiatrist. Thomas's face reddened. Your Honor, I've seen the documentation, Mr. Wright. Judge Hammond's voice was icy. Dr. Cole's credentials are highly questionable. Move on. Thomas recovered quickly. Ms. Washington, isn't it true that you were jealous of Mrs. Caldwell, that you resented her for taking your place in Marcus's life? I never resented her. Dorothy's voice was steady. I wanted Marcus to be happy. I welcomed Vanessa into that house. I treated her with nothing but kindness. And yet, you're now accusing her of terrible crimes. Crimes that would destroy her life, her marriage, her reputation. I'm telling the truth. Or perhaps... Thomas stepped closer. You're a confused old woman who can't distinguish reality from fantasy. Perhaps you dreamed these things, or imagined them, or simply made them up to get revenge on a woman you've always hated. Objection? Michelle was on her feet. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Judge Hammond glared at Thomas. Mr. Wright, confine yourself to questions. Thomas smiled thinly. No further questions. Dorothy stepped down from the witness stand. Her hands were shaking, but her head was still high. Michelle called her next witness. The plaintiff calls Patricia Moore. Patricia walked to the stand. She was visibly nervous, her hands twisting together in her lap. Ms. Moore, how long have you worked for the Caldwell family? 8 years, ma'am. And during that time, did you ever witness Mrs. Caldwell mistreating Dorothy Washington? Patricia swallowed hard. She looked at Vanessa, then quickly looked away. Yes, ma'am. I saw it many times. Can you describe what you saw? I saw Mrs. Caldwell hit Miss Dorothy. I saw her force her to eat spoiled food. I saw her make Miss Dorothy scrub the floors until her knees were bleeding. And I heard her threaten Miss Dorothy, saying she would have her locked away in a crazy house. Why didn't you report this to the police?" Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Caldwell said if any of us talked, she would have us deported. My family, my sister, my nephew, they all depend on me. I was scared." Thomas stood up for cross-examination. "Ms. Moore, isn't it true that you were recently passed over for a promotion by Mrs. Caldwell?" "I don't know what you mean." "I mean that Mrs. Caldwell recommended someone else for the head housekeeper position. Someone you felt was less qualified than you." Patricia's face reddened. "That has nothing to do with this." "Doesn't it?" Thomas spread his hands. "You have every reason to lie about Mrs. Caldwell. Every reason to want revenge." "I'm not lying." No further questions. Patricia stepped down, wiping her eyes. Michelle called James next, then Elena, then 2 other staff members. Each one told the same story. Each one described the horror they had witnessed. Each one admitted they had been too afraid to speak. By the time the lunch recess was called, the jury looked shell-shocked. Marcus sat with Dorothy and Michelle in a small conference room. None of them touched the sandwiches that had been brought in. "How do you think it's going?" Marcus asked. "Better than expected." Michelle's face was grim. "But Vanessa hasn't testified yet. Whatever she's planning, it's coming this afternoon." Dorothy was silent. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. "Mama Dorothy." Marcus touched her arm. "Are you okay?" "I'm tired, baby." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so tired of fighting." "I know." Marcus squeezed her hand. "But we're almost there. Just a few more hours, and then it's over." The afternoon session began at 2:00 p.m. Thomas Wright rose from his seat. "Your Honor, the defense calls Vanessa Caldwell." Vanessa walked to the witness stand like a queen ascending her throne. She sat down, crossed her legs elegantly, and smiled at the jury. "Mrs. Caldwell," Thomas began, "can you tell the court about your relationship with Dorothy Washington?" "Of course." Vanessa's voice was warm, sincere. "Dorothy has been like a mother to my husband. When I married Marcus, I knew how important she was to him. I tried so hard to build a relationship with her." "And did you succeed?" "I thought I had." Vanessa's eyes glistened with tears. "But Dorothy never accepted me. She was jealous, possessive. She saw me as a threat. She started behaving erratically, saying terrible things about me, refusing to eat, wandering around the house at night." "What did you do?" "I tried to help her. I hired a doctor to evaluate her. I made sure she had everything she needed. But she kept getting worse. And then she started making these horrible accusations against me." Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "It's been devastating. I love Dorothy. I would never hurt her. But she's sick. She needs professional help that I can't provide." Michelle stood up for cross-examination. Her eyes were blazing. "Mrs. Caldwell, you claim you love Dorothy Washington. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Then can you explain why this footage shows you dragging her across the floor by her hair?" Michelle pressed a button. The video played on the screen. Vanessa's face went pale. That's not what it looks like. She was having an episode. I was trying to help her." "Help her?" Michelle's voice rose. "You were laughing, Mrs. Caldwell. You were laughing while an elderly woman begged for mercy." "I wasn't laughing, I was crying." "Really?" Michelle pressed another button. A different clip played. Vanessa's laughter echoed through the courtroom. "You think this is funny?" Vanessa's voice on the recording. "Watch me make the old dog eat her dinner." The courtroom erupted. Jurors were shaking their heads in disgust. One woman in the gallery started crying. Judge Hammond banged her gavel. "Order, order in the court!" Vanessa was trembling now. The mask had finally cracked. "Mrs. Caldwell," Michelle continued, "we have 200 hours of footage just like this. 200 hours of you beating, starving, and torturing a 68-year-old woman. Do you deny it?" Vanessa's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She provoked me. She was always provoking me. You don't understand what it was like living with that woman. So you admit it." Michelle's voice was ice. "You admit that you abused Dorothy Washington." "I didn't say that." "You just did." Michelle turned to the judge. "No further questions, Your Honor." Vanessa stumbled back to her seat. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. Thomas Wright tried to do damage control, calling character witnesses who testified to Vanessa's charitable works and her devotion to her husband. But the jury wasn't listening. They had seen the footage. They had heard the laughter. At 4:47 p.m., Judge Hammond called for closing arguments. Michelle went first. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have seen the evidence with your own eyes. You have heard the testimony of multiple witnesses. Vanessa Caldwell did not love Dorothy Washington. She tortured her. She starved her. She beat her. She tried to have her committed to a mental institution to cover up her crimes. This woman is a monster hiding behind a beautiful face, and she must be held accountable for what she has done." Thomas Wright gave his closing argument, but it was half-hearted. Even he knew the case was lost. At 5:15 p.m., Judge Hammond addressed the courtroom. "Based on the evidence presented, I am granting the emergency protective order. Vanessa Caldwell is hereby ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Dorothy Washington at all times. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney for Criminal Prosecution. Mrs. Caldwell, you will surrender your passport immediately. You are not to leave the state of Georgia." Vanessa's face crumpled. "You can't do this. I'm innocent." "She's lying. They're all lying." Bailiff removed Mrs. Caldwell from the courtroom. Two officers approached Vanessa. She struggled against them, screaming, Marcus, please. You have to believe me. I love you. I would never." "Get her out of here," Marcus said quietly. He didn't look at her as they dragged her away. Dorothy sat very still, tears streaming down her face. Marcus put his arm around her. "It's over," he said. "It's finally over." Dorothy looked up at him with those warm brown eyes that had loved him his entire life. "No, baby," she said softly. "It's just beginning." 6 weeks had passed since the emergency hearing. 6 weeks of lawyers' depositions and media frenzy. 6 weeks of reporters camped outside Marcus's office, outside his home, outside every restaurant where he tried to eat in peace. 6 weeks of Vanessa's face plastered across every news channel, every tabloid, every social media platform. The story had gone viral. Tech billionaire's wife exposed as elder abuser. The footage had been leaked somehow, spreading across the internet like wildfire. Millions of people had watched Vanessa drag Dorothy across the kitchen floor. Millions had heard her laugh while forcing garbage into an old woman's mouth. Vanessa's family had tried to spin it. They hired publicists, crisis managers, reputation specialists. They released statements claiming the footage was doctored. They planted stories suggesting Dorothy was a manipulative con artist who had seduced Marcus's father decades ago. None of it worked. The court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. And now on this cold February morning, the real court was about to deliver its own. Marcus arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse at 8:00 a.m. Dorothy was beside him, dressed in the same navy blue dress she had worn to the first hearing. She looked better now. The color had returned to her cheeks. She had gained back some of the weight she had lost. The fear that had haunted her eyes for so long was finally starting to fade. But today, it had returned. "I'm scared, baby," she whispered as they walked up the courthouse steps. "I know I shouldn't be, but I am." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You have nothing to be scared of. Today is the day she pays for what she did to you." "I know." Dorothy took a shaky breath. "But what if something goes wrong? What if her lawyers find some way to get her off?" "They won't." Marcus's voice was firm. "We have the evidence. We have the witnesses. We have the truth. There's nothing they can do." They entered the courthouse and made their way to courtroom 3B. Michelle was already there organizing documents at the plaintiff's table. She looked up when they approached. "How are we feeling?" she asked. "Ready?" Marcus said. Michelle nodded. "The prosecution is confident. They're asking for the maximum sentence, 25 years. Dorothy's hand flew to her chest. 25 years. That's what she deserves. Michelle's voice was hard. Elder abuse, assault, fraud, conspiracy. She's facing multiple felony charges. If the jury convicts on all counts, she'll be an old woman before she sees the outside of a prison cell." The courtroom began to fill. Reporters crowded into the gallery. Camera crews set up in the designated areas. Spectators jostled for seats. This was the biggest trial Atlanta had seen in years, and everyone wanted to witness the conclusion. At 8:45 a.m., Vanessa was brought in. She looked different. The designer suits were gone, replaced by a plain gray prison dress. Her hair, once so perfectly styled, hung limp around her face. Her makeup had faded, revealing dark circles under her eyes and lines around her mouth that Marcus had never noticed before. She looked older, defeated, broken. For just a moment, Marcus felt something stir in his chest, something that might have been pity. Then he remembered Dorothy on the kitchen floor, eating garbage, begging for mercy. The pity died. Vanessa's eyes found Marcus across the courtroom. She stared at him for a long moment. Her lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear. Then she was guided to the defendant's table, and the moment passed. Judge Hammond entered at exactly 900 a.m. "This court is now in session. The people of Georgia versus Vanessa Montgomery Caldwell. We are here today for the reading of the verdict. Has the jury reached a decision?" The jury foreman, a heavy-set man in his 50s, stood up. "We have your honor. Please read the verdict." The foreman cleared his throat. The entire courtroom held its breath. "On the charge of elder abuse in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty." A murmur rippled through the gallery. "On the charge of assault with intent to cause bodily harm, we find the defendant guilty." Vanessa's lawyer placed his hand on her shoulder. She didn't react. "On the charge of fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant guilty." Dorothy gripped Marcus's hand so tightly he thought she might break his fingers. "On the charge of false imprisonment, we find the defendant guilty." "On the charge of witness intimidation, we find the defendant guilty." The foreman looked up from his paper. His eyes swept across the courtroom before settling on Vanessa. "On all counts, we find the defendant guilty as charged." The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Spectators cheered. Cameras flashed like lightning. Judge Hammond banged her gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in the court!" Gradually the noise subsided. Vanessa sat motionless. Her face was white as paper. Her hands trembled in her lap. Judge Hammond turned to her. "Mrs. Caldwell, you have been found guilty by a jury of your peers. Before I pronounce sentence, do you have anything you wish to say to this court?" For a long moment, Vanessa didn't move. Then slowly she rose to her feet. "Your Honor." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I know I've done terrible things. I know I hurt Dorothy. I know I don't deserve forgiveness." She turned to face Marcus and Dorothy. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Marcus, I loved you. I truly did. But something inside me is broken. Something that makes me hurt the people I should protect. I don't understand it. I can't explain it. But I know that what I did was wrong." She looked directly at Dorothy. "Dorothy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I put you through. You didn't deserve any of it. You're a good woman, a kind woman, and I treated you like an animal. I hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I don't expect it. I don't deserve it, but I hope for it anyway." Vanessa turned back to the judge. Her shoulders slumped. "I accept whatever punishment you give me. I deserve it all." She sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Hammond studied Vanessa for a long moment. Her face was unreadable. "Mrs. Caldwell, I have been a judge for 32 years. I have seen terrible things, murder, rape, crimes that would make most people sick. but I have rarely seen anything as cold, as calculated, as deliberately cruel as what you did to Dorothy Washington." Her voice hardened. "You didn't abuse her in a moment of passion. You didn't hurt her because you lost control. You systematically tortured a 68-year-old woman for 3 months. You starved her. You beat her. You forced her to eat garbage, and then you tried to have her committed to a mental institution so that no one would ever believe her." Judge Hammond shook her head slowly. "Your apology today may be sincere. I don't know. What I do know is that you showed no mercy to Dorothy Washington. None whatsoever. And so I will show none to you." She picked up her gavel. "Vanessa Montgomery Caldwell, I hereby sentence you to 25 years in the Georgia State Penitentiary with no possibility of parole for 15 years. You will also pay restitution to Dorothy Washington in the amount of $500,000. Bailiff, take the defendant into custody." Vanessa didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood there as the bailiffs approached, her eyes fixed on something far away that no one else could see. As they led her past the plaintiff's table, she stopped for just a moment. "Take care of him, Dorothy," she whispered. "He deserves better than me." Then she was gone. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. Beside him, Dorothy was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "It's over," Michelle said softly. "It's finally over." Marcus put his arm around Dorothy. "Let's go home." They stepped out of the courthouse into a wall of cameras and microphones. Reporters shouted questions from every direction. "Mr. Caldwell, how do you feel about the verdict?" "Dorothy, do you have any comment for Vanessa?" "Mr. Caldwell, will you be filing for divorce?" Marcus held up his hand. The crowd fell silent. "Today justice was served," he said quietly. "A woman who tortured a helpless elderly person for 3 months will spend the next 25 years in prison. That's as it should be." He looked down at Dorothy. "But this isn't a day for celebration. It's a day for reflection. Dorothy Washington is the strongest, kindest, most loving person I have ever known. She raised me when my own mother couldn't. She sacrificed everything so that I could have a better life. And I failed her." His voice cracked. "I was so busy building my empire, making my money, living my life, that I didn't see what was happening in my own home. I trusted the wrong person. I ignored the signs. And Dorothy paid the price for my blindness." Marcus wiped his eyes. "I can't undo what happened. I can't give Dorothy back those 3 months, but I can promise her this: for the rest of my life, I will do everything in my power to make sure that no one else ever suffers the way she did." He turned to Dorothy. "Mama, Dorothy, do you want to say anything?" Dorothy stepped forward. She was so small, so frail, standing in front of all those cameras and microphones. But her voice was steady. "I want to thank God," she said simply. "I prayed every night for deliverance, and He answered my prayers. He sent my boy home to save me." She looked directly into the cameras. "And I want to say something to anyone out there who's going through what I went through. Anyone who's being hurt by someone who should love them. Anyone who's been told they're crazy, that no one will believe them, that they have nowhere to turn." Her voice rose. "Don't give up. Don't ever give up. The truth always comes out. God always provides. And there are people in this world who will believe you, who will fight for you, who will stand by your side no matter what." Tears streamed down her face. "I almost lost hope. There were nights when I thought about ending it all just to make the pain stop. But I held on. I held on because I believed that my boy would come home and see the truth. And he did." Dorothy's voice broke. "So please, if you're suffering, hold on. Just a little longer. Help is coming. I promise you, help is coming." The crowd was silent. Several reporters were wiping their eyes. Marcus took Dorothy's hand. "Come on, Mama Dorothy. Let's go home." They walked through the crowd, past the cameras, past the microphones, past the shouting reporters. A black SUV was waiting for them at the curb. James was at the wheel. As they drove away from the courthouse, Dorothy leaned her head against Marcus's shoulder. "Thank you, baby," she whispered. Thank you for believing me. I should have believed you from the start. Marcus's voice was heavy with guilt. I should have seen what was happening. Don't blame yourself. Dorothy patted his hand. The devil is clever. She fooled everyone. But in the end, the truth came out. That's all that matters. They drove in silence for a while. The city passed by outside the windows, but Marcus barely noticed. Mama Dorothy. Yes, baby. I've been thinking about something. About what you said outside the courthouse. Dorothy looked up at him. You said there are people out there going through what you went through. People who have no one to believe them. No one to fight for them. There are, Dorothy said quietly. More than you know. I want to help them. Marcus's voice was firm. I want to start a foundation, something that will protect elderly people from abuse, something that will give them a voice when no one else will listen. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. That's a beautiful idea, baby. I want to name it after you. Marcus looked at her. The Dorothy Washington Foundation. For everyone who's ever been told they're worthless. For everyone who's ever been made to feel invisible. For everyone who's ever needed someone to believe in them. Dorothy couldn't speak. She just held his hand and cried. When they arrived at the mansion, Patricia and Elena and James and all the other staff members were waiting for them on the front steps. They burst into applause as Dorothy stepped out of the car. Welcome home, Miss Dorothy. Patricia rushed forward and embraced her. Welcome home. Dorothy hugged her back, laughing and crying at the same time. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you all. They went inside together. The house felt different somehow. Lighter, cleaner, as if Vanessa's absence had lifted a shadow that had been hanging over everything. That evening, Marcus and Dorothy had dinner together in the formal dining room. Just the two of them, like old times. Patricia had prepared all of Dorothy's favorite dishes. Fried chicken collard greens, cornbread sweet potato pie. Dorothy ate more than she had eaten in months. Marcus watched her with a smile on his face. What are you looking at? Dorothy asked. You. Marcus shook his head. I can't believe how much better you look. It's like watching someone come back to life. That's because I am back to life. Dorothy reached across the table and squeezed his hand. For 3 months I was dying a little more every day, but now I'm living again. And it's all because of you. It's not because of me. Marcus shook his head. It's because of you. Your strength, your faith, your refusal to give up no matter how bad things got. I had something to hold on to. Dorothy's eyes were bright with tears. I had you. I knew that if I could just survive until you came home, everything would be all right. How did you know? Marcus asked. How could you be so sure I would believe you? Dorothy smiled. Because I raised you. I know the man you are. You have a good heart, Marcus, a true heart. I knew that once you saw the truth, nothing would stop you from doing what was right. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. I don't deserve you, Mama Dorothy. Nonsense! Dorothy waved her hand. You deserve everything good in this world, and you're going to get it. I've prayed for it every day of your life, and God always answers my prayers. They finished dinner as the sun set outside the windows. Marcus helped Dorothy to her new room, the one he had prepared for her on the main floor. It was 3 times the size of the cramped quarters Vanessa had forced her into, with its own bathroom and a beautiful view of the garden. This is too much, Dorothy protested. I don't need all this space. You deserve it. Marcus kissed her forehead. Sweet dreams, Mama Dorothy. Sweet dreams, baby. Marcus was about to leave when Dorothy called out to him. Marcus? He turned. Yes. Dorothy was sitting on the edge of her bed, her hands folded in her lap. Her face was serious. There's something I never told you. Something about Vanessa. Marcus's blood went cold. What do you mean? Dorothy took a deep breath. About a month before you came home, Vanessa had a visitor, a man. I didn't see his face, but I heard them talking. Talking about what? Dorothy's voice dropped to a whisper. About you. About your money. About how to get you to change your will. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. What? She was planning something, baby. Something bigger than just getting rid of me. I think she was planning to hurt you too. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway. His mind was racing. Did you tell anyone about this, Michelle, the prosecutor? No. Dorothy shook her head. I wasn't sure what I heard. I didn't have any proof. And with everything else going on, I didn't want to add more confusion. But now you're telling me. Because it's over now. She's in prison. She can't hurt anyone anymore. Dorothy's eyes were filled with worry. But I thought you should know. In case there are others out there. In case she wasn't working alone. Marcus's jaw tightened. I'll look into it. He walked back to Dorothy and held her hands. Thank you for telling me. Now get some rest. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow. Dorothy nodded. Good night, baby. Good night, Mama Dorothy. Marcus closed the door behind him and stood in the hallway for a long moment. His heart was pounding. His mind was spinning with possibilities. Who was the man Dorothy had heard? What were they planning? Was there more to Vanessa's scheme than anyone realized? He pulled out his phone and dialed Michelle's number. Michelle, it's Marcus. I need you to dig deeper into Vanessa's finances, her contacts, anyone she was meeting with in the months before I came home. Michelle's voice was sharp. Why? What happened? Dorothy just told me something. Something that changes everything. Tell me. Marcus took a deep breath. I think Vanessa was planning to kill me. 3 days after the verdict, Michelle called with news that turned Marcus's blood to ice. We found him, she said. The man Dorothy heard talking to Vanessa. His name is Victor Reyes. He's a professional fixer. The kind of person wealthy people hire when they want problems to disappear permanently. Marcus gripped the phone tighter. What kind of problems? The kind that breathe Marcus. Marcus closed his eyes. She really was going to kill me. It's worse than that. Michelle's voice was grim. We found emails. Coded messages between Vanessa and Victor. They had a timeline. You were supposed to die in a car accident 3 weeks after you returned from Singapore. Once you were gone, Vanessa would inherit everything, and Dorothy would already be locked away in a mental institution, unable to tell anyone what really happened. But I came home early. Exactly. Your early return threw everything off. Vanessa had to improvise. That's why she accelerated the plan to have Dorothy committed. She was trying to get rid of the only witness before you could discover the truth. Marcus felt sick. Where is Victor now? FBI arrested him this morning. He's cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence. He's willing to testify against Vanessa. So she's facing additional charges. Conspiracy to commit murder. Michelle's voice was hard. If convicted, she'll never see the outside of a prison again. Marcus hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long moment. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. Vanessa had planned to kill him. The woman he had loved, the woman he had married, the woman he had trusted with his life, had been plotting his murder while smiling at him across the breakfast table. He thought about all the times she had kissed him goodbye before business trips, all the times she had told him to be careful to take care of himself to come home safe. Had she been hoping each time that he wouldn't come back? Marcus stood up abruptly. He needed air. He needed to move. He needed to do something, or he was going to lose his mind. He found Dorothy in the garden sitting on a bench beneath the magnolia tree. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. What's wrong, baby? You look like you've seen a ghost. Marcus sat down beside her. Michelle called. They found the man you heard talking to Vanessa. Dorothy's face went pale. And? He was a hitman. Marcus's voice was hollow. Vanessa hired him to kill me. They had it all planned out. A car accident 3 weeks after I got home from Singapore. Then she would inherit everything, and you would be locked away where no one would believe you. Dorothy pressed her hand to her heart. Lord have mercy. If I hadn't come home early... Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. But you did. Dorothy grabbed his hand and squeezed. You came home early because God was watching over you. Over both of us. He saw what was happening in this house, and he brought you back before it was too late. I don't know if I believe that, Mama Dorothy. Then believe this. Dorothy's eyes were fierce. You're alive. I'm alive. That woman is in prison where she belongs, and we have a chance to build something good from all this pain. That's what matters now, not what almost happened, what did happen, and what we're going to do next. Marcus looked at her. This woman who had survived 3 months of torture. This woman who had kept the faith even when everything seemed hopeless. This woman who was comforting him when she was the one who had suffered most. How do you do it? He asked. How do you stay so strong? Dorothy smiled. I'm not strong, baby. I'm just too stubborn to give up. Always have been. Marcus laughed despite himself. It felt strange laughing, but also good. Come on. Dorothy stood up slowly. Let's go inside. Patricia made peach cobbler, and I'm not letting you mope around when there's dessert to be eaten. 2 weeks later, Marcus filed for divorce. It was a formality at this point. Vanessa was facing life in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Their marriage had been based on lies from the very beginning. But Marcus needed the legal closure. He needed to cut every remaining tie to the woman who had tried to destroy his family. The divorce was finalized in record time. No one contested it. Vanessa's family had abandoned her after the full extent of her crimes became public. Her father released a statement expressing deep shame and regret for his daughter's actions. Her mother refused to speak to reporters. Marcus didn't feel triumphant. He just felt tired. But there was work to be done. The Dorothy Washington Foundation launched on a sunny morning in April. Marcus had rented out the ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton for the event. Over 500 people attended. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, journalists. Everyone wanted to be part of this moment. Everyone wanted to associate themselves with the story that had captured the nation's heart. Dorothy sat in the front row, wearing a beautiful purple dress that Patricia had helped her pick out. Her silver hair was freshly styled. Her eyes sparkled with joy and disbelief. I can't believe all these people are here for me, she whispered to Marcus. They're not just here for you. Marcus squeezed her hand. They're here because of what you represent. Hope. Strength. The belief that justice is possible, even when everything seems lost. The program began with a video presentation. It told Dorothy's story from beginning to end, her childhood in rural Georgia, her decades of service to the Caldwell family, the horrific abuse she had suffered, her courage in fighting back, her triumph in court. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when it ended. Marcus took the stage to thunderous applause. Thank you all for being here today. This foundation exists because of one woman's courage and one family's failure. He paused. My failure. The room went silent. 3 months. For 3 months, Dorothy Washington was tortured in my own home, and I didn't know. I was too busy, too distracted, too blind to see what was happening right under my nose. That's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. Marcus looked at Dorothy. But Dorothy never gave up on me. Even when I doubted her, even when I believed the lies, even when I almost signed her away to a mental institution, she never stopped believing that I would eventually see the truth. That faith saved her life. It probably saved mine, too. He turned back to the audience. The Dorothy Washington Foundation exists to make sure that no one else has to suffer the way she did. We will provide legal assistance to elderly abuse victims. We will fund investigations into care facilities that mistreat their residents. We will create hotlines and shelters and support networks for seniors who have nowhere else to turn. Marcus's voice rose. Elder abuse is an epidemic in this country. Every year, millions of seniors are beaten, starved, robbed, and humiliated by the very people who should be protecting them. Most of them suffer in silence because they're afraid no one will believe them. Most of them die without ever seeing justice. He pointed to Dorothy. This woman refused to be silent. This woman refused to give up. And because of her courage, a monster is behind bars, and a foundation has been born that will help countless others. That's her legacy. That's what we're celebrating today." The applause was deafening. Dorothy rose slowly from her seat. She walked to the stage on unsteady legs, but her head was held high. Marcus helped her up the steps and handed her the microphone. "I don't know what to say." Dorothy's voice trembled. "I'm just an old woman from Georgia. I never expected any of this." She looked out at the sea of faces. "But I want to say one thing to anyone out there who's going through what I went through. Anyone who's being hurt. Anyone who's being told they're worthless, they're crazy, they don't matter." Her voice grew stronger. "You matter. Your life matters. Your pain matters. And there are people in this world who will fight for you, who will believe you, who will stand by your side until justice is done." Tears streamed down her face. "I almost gave up so many times. There were nights when I prayed for God to just take me to end my suffering, to let me rest. But something kept me going. Something told me to hold on just a little longer." Dorothy looked at Marcus. "And then my boy came home. My beautiful, stubborn, loving boy. And he believed me. He fought for me. He saved my life." She reached out and took Marcus's hand. "So don't give up. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how hopeless it seems, don't give up. Help is coming. I promise you, help is coming." The entire room rose to their feet. The applause went on, wave after wave of sound crashing over the stage. Dorothy and Marcus stood together, hand in hand, tears streaming down both their faces. After the event, they sat alone in a quiet corner of the hotel. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. "Overwhelmed?" Dorothy shook her head slowly. "Happy, grateful, a little scared." "Scared of what?" "Of what comes next." Dorothy looked at him with those warm brown eyes. "My whole life I've been the help, the housekeeper, the woman who stayed in the background while other people lived their lives. I don't know how to be anything else." "Then let me show you." Marcus took her hand. "Let me show you what it feels like to be cared for instead of caring for everyone else. Let me give you the life you should have had all along." "Marcus, you don't have to." "I want to." His voice was firm. "You raised me, Mama Dorothy. You gave up everything so I could have a chance at a better life. Now it's my turn. Let me take care of you for once." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "You're a good boy, Marcus. Your mama would be so proud of you." "She's proud of both of us." Marcus squeezed her hand. "I really believe that." 6 months later, the foundation had helped over 3,000 elderly abuse victims. Hotlines had been established in all 50 states. Legal aid clinics had opened in major cities across the country. Investigations had been launched into dozens of care facilities with histories of abuse. Dorothy had become a national symbol. She appeared on talk shows, news programs, magazine covers. She spoke at conferences and fundraisers and community events. Everywhere she went, people wanted to meet her, to thank her, to tell her how her story had inspired them. But through it all, she remained the same Dorothy she had always been: humble, kind, full of faith. One evening, Marcus found her sitting in the garden, just like she used to do before everything changed. The magnolia tree was in full bloom, filling the air with sweet fragrance. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "Always room for my boy." Dorothy patted the bench beside her. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. "Do you ever think about her?" Dorothy asked quietly. "Vanessa?" Marcus was silent for a moment. "Sometimes. Not as much as I used to." "Do you hate her?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I used to. When I first found out what she did to you, I wanted to destroy her. I wanted to make her suffer the way she made you suffer. And now? Now I just feel sorry for her." Marcus shook his head. "She had everything. Money, beauty, a husband who loved her. and she threw it all away because she couldn't control her own cruelty. She's going to spend the rest of her life in a prison cell alone, unloved, forgotten. That's punishment enough. Dorothy nodded slowly. Hatred is a heavy burden, baby. It'll crush you if you let it. What about you? Marcus looked at her. Do you hate her? Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. I tried to hate her. Lord knows I had every reason to. But every time I started down that road, I heard my grandmother's voice in my head. Dorothy May. She used to say, don't let nobody steal your peace. Hate will poison your soul faster than any enemy ever could. She looked up at the sky. So I let it go. I gave it to God. I said, Lord, you deal with Vanessa. I've got better things to do with whatever time I have left. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. You're a better person than me, Mama Dorothy. I'm not better. Dorothy shook her head. I'm just older. You learn things when you've lived as long as I have. You learn that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. They sat together as the sun sank below the horizon. The first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Mama Dorothy. Yes, baby. Thank you. For everything. For raising me. For believing in me. For never giving up even when I gave you every reason to. Dorothy reached over and took his hand. Thank you for coming home, baby. Thank you for believing me when no one else would. Thank you for giving this old woman a reason to keep living. You gave yourself that reason. Marcus squeezed her hand. I just helped you find it. They sat together until the stars filled the sky. Two survivors, two fighters, two people who had been through hell and come out the other side stronger than before. 1 year later, Marcus stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. Behind him, a banner read, Dorothy's Law Protecting America's Seniors. In front of him, a crowd of thousands had gathered to witness the historic moment. Dorothy sat in the front row surrounded by senators, congressmen, and the President of the United States. Today we make history. Marcus said, his voice echoing across the National Mall. Today we send a message to every abuser, every predator, every monster who preys on the vulnerable. Your days are numbered. Justice is coming. And her name is Dorothy. The crowd erupted in cheers. The president stepped forward to sign the legislation. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. History was being made. But Marcus wasn't looking at any of that. He was looking at Dorothy, at the tears streaming down her weathered face, at the joy shining in her eyes, at the smile that had been absent for so long but had finally returned. She caught his eye and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Marcus mouthed back. Thank you, Mama. After the ceremony, they walked together through the crowds. People reached out to shake Dorothy's hand, to take pictures with her, to thank her for her courage. She greeted each one with grace and warmth, never forgetting that she was once just like them. Ordinary. Invisible. Forgotten. When they finally reached their car, Dorothy sank into the seat with a contented sigh. Tired? Marcus asked. Exhausted. Dorothy laughed. But the good kind of exhausted. The kind you feel when you've done something that matters. You've done more than something that matters. Marcus started the car. You've changed the world, Mama Dorothy. We changed it together, baby. Dorothy patted his arm. Couldn't have done any of it without you. They drove through the streets of Washington as the sun began to set. The monuments glowed golden in the fading light. The American flag fluttered above the Capitol dome. Where to now? Marcus asked. Dorothy smiled. Home, baby. Take me home. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Dorothy passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was surrounded by everyone who loved her. Marcus was holding her hand. Patricia and James and Elena were nearby. The room was filled with flowers and photographs and all the little things that had made up her extraordinary life. The funeral was attended by thousands. The president sent a wreath. Senators and governors and celebrities offered condolences. But the people who mattered most were the ordinary ones. the caregivers and housekeepers and elderly abuse survivors who had been inspired by Dorothy's story. They came from every corner of the country to say goodbye to the woman who had given them hope. Marcus delivered the eulogy. Dorothy Washington was born with nothing and died with everything that matters. She had love. She had purpose. She had the knowledge that her life had made a difference in this world. His voice cracked. She raised me when my own mother couldn't. She believed in me when no one else did. She forgave me when I failed her, and she showed me what true strength looks like. Marcus looked at the casket covered in white roses. Mama Dorothy, I know you're watching. I know you're up there with my mother looking down on all of us, probably telling God how to run things better. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. I promise you this, your legacy will live on. The Dorothy Washington Foundation will continue helping people long after we're all gone. Your name will be remembered. Your story will be told. And every time someone who's been abused finds the courage to speak up, every time an elder finds justice against their tormentor, it will be because of you. Marcus stepped back from the podium. Rest now, Mama Dorothy. You've earned it. That evening, Marcus sat alone in Dorothy's favorite spot in the garden. The magnolia tree was in full bloom. The air was sweet with fragrance. The stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He held a photograph in his hands. It showed Dorothy holding baby Marcus, taken 35 years ago. She was smiling that radiant smile. He was looking up at her with complete trust and love. I miss you already, Marcus whispered to the photograph. But I know you're still with me. You always will be. He looked up at the stars. Thank you, Mama Dorothy. Thank you for everything. Thank you for raising me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for teaching me what it means to be a good person. A warm breeze rustled through the magnolia leaves. It felt almost like a hand stroking his cheek. Marcus smiled. I'll see you again someday. Until then, watch over me. Keep believing in me. And know that your boy loves you more than words can say. He sat there until the stars filled the entire sky. Then he stood up, tucked the photograph into his pocket, and walked back toward the house. Behind him, the magnolia tree swayed gently in the breeze. A single white blossom broke free and floated up toward the heavens. Dorothy Washington was gone, but her love remained, and love never dies. This is the story of Dorothy Washington, an ordinary woman who endured extraordinary suffering, a victim who became a survivor who became a hero. Her name is written in the laws of this nation. Her legacy lives on in the thousands of lives she helped save, and her spirit remains in the hearts of everyone who heard her story and found the courage to keep fighting. Some stories end in tragedy, some end in triumph. Dorothy's story ended in both. But most importantly, it ended in love. And that makes all the difference.